Hello, this is Tim, or Lonely Controller for theButtonSmashers.com. Thanks for checking out our review of The Grand Kingdom. Grand Kingdom is a new tactical RPG presented to us by NIS America and developed by Spike Chunsoft. Although both versions must be purchased separately, the game supports crossplay on PlayStation 4 and PS Vita. The game is set in a continent in constant war. The four great nations Land-Earth, Valkyr, Fiel, and Maegion clash for supremacy, and war has been ongoing for generations. War is such a constant for the kingdom that a mercenary class is developed to fight these wars. As their captain, you, the player, will assemble troops of mercenaries to head off into battle. This depressing premise of constant warfare may serve as an explanation for having a misfit band of mercenaries fighting for one country one day and fighting for their opponent the next, but I found it hard to muster any enthusiasm for this as a plot device. War is a terrible, devastating thing, and this game glories in it a bit too much for my comfort. After a very brief tutorial and a few simplified battles, the campaign opens by creating characters for your first mercenary troop. There are 4 basic classes to choose from: fighter, mage or witch, medic, and a hunter, which is a ranged archer. Each mercenary you hire can be customized with name, hair color, outfit color, voice, which is nice, but unfortunately none of these characters really have any backstory except in your own head if you name them after your friends. As you battle and gain XP, your mercenaries will level up and gain points to assign to various stats. Some stats, like strength or magic attack, you obviously want to boost for a fighter or a mage, but it isn't clear what stats a healer would want to boost, for example, and the game doesn't explain how these various attributes are important. In fact, the game doesn't explain a lot of things, leaving the player to figure out how to navigate the mess of menus and systems through trial and error. Compounding this problem is the fact that the game autosaves at intervals that it determines, leaving the player no choice but to accept certain outcomes. Before we go any further, let's talk about what is good in Grand Kingdom. When your band of mercenaries goes on quests, you traverse the area in a board game-like map. Enemies move when you do, and it can be challenged or avoided. Occasionally, hidden treasures or paths will pop up, and there are hazards that must be navigated by pushing through and losing HP, crossing cautiously and losing turns, or using a mercenary special ability to avoid. Turns are important. If you fail to reach the goal for an area in the allotted number of turns, you fail that quest. When you cross paths with a monster, combat begins, and this is the best part of the game. Your mercenaries join the battlefield in the position you've predetermined for them, fighters in the front, archers and healers in the back. Both you and the enemy have the ability to put obstacles and traps in the environment, and even players in the guard stance can be obstacles in the 3 lanes of the field of combat. Spells and potions often have splash damage, so a healing potion tossed at a comrade can also splash on an enemy, so you have to be careful. Tactically, it is very fun to experiment with different troop types like the rogue, which can become invisible, and to plan your next move of attack. I would be reasonably satisfied with Grand Kingdom as a single-player campaign based on this combat if it weren't for 3 things. First, in between the quests, the cutscenes, while voice-acted fine, are immersion-breaking because of the presentation. The screen is sliced into vertical thirds with only the middle section having a 2D background, while characters talk on either side. Secondly, other than your 2 support officers, there aren't many notable characters in the game, and there isn't much story to speak of since the world is always at war without resolution. Thirdly, and most importantly, the game practically forces you to play multiplayer, and multiplayer is a confusing hot mess. Why do you have to play multiplayer? Well, if you want to progress in leveling up your characters, you need to class up to boost your affinity in certain stats. You can only do this in 2 ways, by earning tomes and scrolls in either multiplayer, war, or by buying them on PSN. Since you really need these tomes to progress, and paying for them is just gross, let's talk about war. In the home menu, you sign a contract with one of the 4 warring factions and dispatch your troop to battle. In menu after menu, you will negotiate treaties to keep some nations off your back while you attack others, vote with other players which area to attack, spend items to develop catapults and other field artillery, and again vote to where to place these items. Finally, you get to combat, but troop movement is completely different from the campaign. You either attack an enemy position or defend your own fixed position. I don't really want to spend any more time talking about the war multiplayer, except to say, I'm glad that Vita and PS4 players can all play it in the same servers. It seemed like a hot mess to me and not at all fun, and I wish it wasn't necessary to join war to progress in the main campaign. Especially in multiplayer, Grand Kingdom feels like a jumble of different game ideas thrown together and not part of a cohesive whole. I had no sense of immersion or place while playing, so I didn't care about the world or the people in it. For example, visiting the 4 capitals of the various nations feels like a generic, boring experience. Each capital has a slightly different 2D background, to be sure, but they all have the same generic villagers, blacksmiths, and minstrels, talking bland nonsense to you, and you don't even have the opportunity to wander the capital and enter shops. You just click on another menu to interact with each character. Ultimately, I had to agree with Flint and click exit to menu so I could leave this jumbled mess and go grab a beer. Thanks for watching this review. Please be sure to visit thebuttonsmashers.com and read the full review of Grand Kingdom, as well as many other great reviews and articles from editors in the Button Smasher family.